Hello and welcome to Ideagen TV, powered by Azure and presented globally by Microsoft. Today, we are excited and very thrilled to welcome on Michael Kaplanis, the CEO of Platinum Auto Finance. Michael, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Michael, it's so great to have you joining us today on Ideagen TV as part of our Global Leadership Summit. And Michael, to kick off the interview, for our global audience, can you share a little bit about yourself and some of the, your roles and responsibilities as CEO of Platinum Auto Finance?
Sure, absolutely. My name is Michael Kaplanis. I'm someone with executive experience and finance experience, and I've tried to leverage that into building businesses and making investments. When I left a Wall Street career behind about a decade ago, my idea was to take what I had learned in that time on Wall Street in large firms, investing at an institutional level, and take that and try to invest in Main Street and potentially, let's say, take some Main Street concepts and launch them all the way back to Wall Street type deals. And so Platinum Auto Finance, which I'm running now and serve as the Chief Executive Officer for that business since August of 2016. We actually had done an institutional deal. So started that from a business in early 2012 with no clients, no loans, no employees, but a group of partners who wanted to sponsor some folks in the space that had experience. And we invested in it and grew it into a really interesting company that spanned multiple states and had a lot of employees. Like anything though, times change, things change. So we've seen an incredibly competitive landscape as some of the largest players have gotten larger. Smaller companies like us were under a lot of pressure to grow. We did do that institutional deal and it didn't go as well as we would have hoped. So there's lessons to be learned from that. But certainly competing in an arena is good experience. Building a business, building employees, seeing them progress and grow. These are all rewarding things that contribute. And at the end of the day, we're fighting to survive. The deal we had done made it difficult, and we as we had a nice solution to get through that, March 2020 hit, and we're all familiar with how much that has changed everything for all of us. Tremendous human toll over the past year. People are still suffering both through the disease directly and also indirectly through the consequences of the disease and the responses. And so out of all that, in a difficult year, still alive, still fighting to survive. But like many small businesses, we face a very high uphill climb. But try to leverage everything I learned and push it back out to let's say, execute on the vision of the business. And while I serve Platinum Auto Finance, my traditional, before I took that full-time role in the business back in 2016, I was investing in more businesses, getting more exposure to other types of industries. And actually in the heat of let's say a most difficult year in 2019 and 2020 for my business direct, I was pitched a really good idea and have been able to use what I've learned in the past 10 years plus as more of an entrepreneur and investor directly into small businesses and help another type of business get me new exposure in the space. And that person that actually pitched that was my wife, Kaplanis. And she launched a fine jewelry business, e-commerce, run through social media and the web. It's a fascinating concept, and it's going really well.
Right. That's right, Michael. And to your point, we did come off just an incredibly challenging 2020. And like you said, that's true leadership. That's traits, never stop learning, being, persevering through the tough times. So like you said, we came off an incredibly challenging 2020 with the global situation, the global pandemic. And now as we, start to emerge from the, pandemic world into this post-pandemic new normal, if you will, leadership is so crucial. Now, Michael, my question to you is what does true leadership mean to you? And why do you believe that we need it now more than ever?
So I think really generally we're starved for leadership in a way. And, I think people everywhere, I think in this country, I think in many others, they're looking for accountable leadership. So, to me, an effective leader can communicate a vision, certainly wants to lead by example, set a good example, but have everyone on mission towards accomplishing the goal and keeping everyone to task. Those are traditional leadership qualities. I think something that gets missed in leadership are a couple things. I think accountability, humility. I think these are two kind of very overlooked recently leadership qualities that I think we can look to historical and past leaders to find good examples of this. Real true courage under fire, the ability to really make it through difficult circumstances. But ultimately, the leader sets the pace, sets the example, drives the organization. But at the same time, I think the leader is accountable. So you're accountable when you make a good decision. You're accountable when you make a poor decision. And I think a good leader recognizes, I have made a poor decision in this circumstance. Presented with all the facts, I had a choice. I made this choice. I'm accountable now to this choice. And I'm going to take responsibility for this choice. And what does that ultimately mean? That means, course correct. That means get better. That means shift with the new information, shift with what you've learned from that experience. And then the humility aspect, I think, is important, recognizing that we're all human beings. Nobody has all the answers. I certainly don't. I think if I were to grade my performance in the past year, I give myself poor marks generally, which is probably something people would not necessarily expect to hear. But I just think that I prepared for much of my life to face very difficult circumstances. And I think I've been through so many challenges over the years in business, as an entrepreneur. Trying to start things from zero is a very frustrating and difficult experience. And anyone that has experience in it will know this. But you keep trying to push ahead, but you don't know everything. Things aren't always going to go your way. And it's okay to admit that, hey, I didn't have this completely right. I could have done a better job. Learn from it now, move forward, and get better. I think that's the key. Too much I see today that troubles me are people unwilling to take the hard stands, make the hard choices, and be accountable for their actions. I've had to make extremely life-impacting decisions in my time in this role, both in good times when things needed to change. And unfortunately, you take a business and you're structured a certain way, and now we're going to modernize the business. There's changes, and unfortunately, jobs can be lost or jobs can be changed, and people, you're getting different types of talent and for your business for where you are at a different point in time. That's difficult. Those are hard choices to make. It's even harder when you're faced with difficult choices that you don't want to have to make, but your hand is forced through circumstance. And I think everyone can use last year as a great example, being pushed into a direction where this is not what you want to do, but you have to do it. And unfortunately, when you have to let good people go, when you have to downsize, I think it was really about a year ago that I'm having this conversation with you all, that we had to make some extremely hard decisions. If the US economy is going to lock down, there won't be commerce. We serve clientele that have credit challenges. They do the jobs, I'll say the real jobs in the United States. These are the people doing the labor, doing the work. They're not making huge money, and often small disruptions in their financial situation can lead to financial chaos, which then leads to them having poor credit scores, poor marks. We're a lender that gives people that second chance. But now put us in a position where in March 2020, the servers can't serve, many of the laborers can't go to work, they can't do their jobs. This uncertainty was very difficult for our borrowers that we already had. It was also difficult for looking for new business, not knowing, is this person going to be able to work? is it responsible to do a loan if, this person may be not able to work, not be able to afford it? We don't want to make a bad situation worse. So again, the struggles, talking about leadership, again, I think, communicating a vision is important. Keeping your teammates accountable by the same standards you hold yourself accountable, I think is very important. But ultimately looking at things with the eye towards being accountable towards the decisions you make, and ultimately understanding that you're not going to always make the right choice. You're going to make the best choice you can, but it's okay to admit that you can learn from that.
Right. That's incredible, Michael. I mean, such incredible insight, and I couldn't agree with you more. As a leader, holding yourself accountable really shows, your employees or whoever it is that that you deserve to be in that position. And I think what you also mentioned, where you encourage and support and push your employees, is going to help get that 100% excellence out of them. And it shows them that you care about them and the work that they're doing as well for the company. So I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that was incredible insight. Now, Michael, switching gears slightly, we focus a lot on the UN Sustainable Development Goals and sustainability in general. Now, Michael, my question is, what are your thoughts on sustainability? And do you feel that it is important to incorporate it in your institution? And how are you doing so?
Sure. Certainly sustainability is extremely important, but it can radiate into so many different concepts, both from really, like, maybe the most people think of these beautiful, pictures of idyllic landscapes dotted maybe with some types of renewable energy and a beautiful scene, and say, sustainability. At the same time, you could take it down to your daily life and say, what choices are we making to be responsible people and citizens, and understanding that the resources on this planet are finite, and the number of people are many, and so we got to make good responsible choices because of that. I think on bringing it into my organization, we're as let's just say from the auto lender perspective, there's not a wild amount we can do. We're pretty software driven business. We do deal in some paper. It's hard to get rid of it. We tried. So actually I could say, we for years tried to get rid of, a lot of the paperwork, but I think the difficult thing is in the credit segment that we deal in. A lot of times we end up with a lot more paper and steps and proving up income and residence than you might have with some of the prime borrowers, where you could probably be just totally electronic. It'd be beautiful. We tried to switch and kind of had to switch back. That might be one of those, let's say, lessons from many years ago, where a much younger, less gray Michael would have said, like, we got to go paperless. This is crazy. I said this. We shouldn't have so much paper. I think this is like, what is, it's not the 90s. Like, why are we just printing, too much? And I tried to get rid of it, but practically speaking, for a lot of what we do, it wasn't always it was impossible, let's say, to take our footprint to zero, but we could improve our wastefulness, I think, was kind of the goal out of it. And some of the mission and purpose was just to get people to, kind of be cognizant of their resource use. Funny stories over the years where, again, you get it as an entrepreneur and the one running the business, the water bill going insane one month. And then I remember one of my employees, I think she was our HR director, was the one that brought it up about maybe they're using too much water downstairs and the thing. And it actually turned out with some investigation, there was a bit of a leak. So we got that fixed. So in a more serious context, or say, outside of the platinum business, the whole concept, I think, is interesting as far as, again, how do we deal with this on a local scale, a country scale, say, and then a global scale. So I think, taking the idea and saying, I want to be more responsible in my personal life, those are decisions I encourage others to do, and try to find ways that you just find yourself being less wasteful. I mean, I remember as a kid there were pushes about water usage and, how you're, brushing your teeth, doing all these things, like turn off the, all these little reminders growing up. I grew up in an era where a lot of that was, was a thing, to kind of push it in our brains, and you find yourself with these habits that are influenced. So, sometimes like small thing, that's what I mean by the local ideas in your daily life. It's like, you brush your, you don't need to run the water. You turn it off, limit your time doing certain things. If it's really not going to affect, you, it's like, try to be mindful that you could be less wasteful. I think then when you take it to larger contexts, it's certainly, there are things we could do, I think, better as a society generally. And then, ultimately it's kind of, again, it goes back to maybe a question of, your wants versus some of your needs and understanding.
Right. And I really like how you touched on, holding accountability. I think that is, another way of how we're going to reach a, more sustainable world is by holding, that person next to you, like you said, turn off the sink or, just do the little things that's going to help make, this world more sustainable. But the other thing that I think is another huge way that we're going to, ultimately achieve the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals is partnerships. And here at Ideagen, we, talk heavily on the importance of partnerships and global partnerships, and how working together is going to actually help us achieve these huge, monumental goals. So, Michael, my question is, as we look towards 2030 and, the achieving of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, how are you and your partners or colleagues working together to collaborate and make sure, you're working to create that sustainable world, or working towards a goal or more than one goal? So how are you working, how are you using partnerships to carry out your mission and those of the UN SDGs?
Sure. So, we touch on personally, what we can do. I think what's fascinating to me, and I can connect this to, I guess I would say now, one of the investment companies, again, having another concept in the deck is wonderful. And my wife's business is interesting. Being a fine jewelry business with many suppliers, we interact with a global community now all the time. Customers globally, which is fascinating and an unbelievable thing to see that, we had to figure out during the pandemic. It's like, how do you ship to this country? How am I going to get this there? How does that go? And why I bring this up is not just our consumers in other countries. It's the supply chain, the global supply chain that exists to deliver results, at the end of the day, finished pieces, finished product to clients, that started all the way from the raw materials. That this is an entirely global network functioning. We've had to interact with people in multiple countries to get to hire them for services for the business direct. We have contracted out a few times website development work. We've contracted out everything from, so you imagine a little story about, in jewelry, it's like you start, my wife starts selling things and you have to ship them out, right? It's not a physical store, it's an e-commerce store. So started with UPS freight mailboxes, boxes with the stuff packed inside, and it evolved. And I bring up this story because it'll connect. So we wanted to elevate the experience. And so one thing my wife said, she needed like those little boxes that people put the rings and when you go to the jeweler. And so here's to your sustainability question. My wife and I looked at it, we quoted out some boxes. They were a little bit pricey. Look for some other things. You could find anything on Amazon today. All right. So you see this and they got these boxes, but it was something like what we said. And this was a real conversation with my wife. It's like, just going to throw this out. They're not going to keep this box. So what else can we do? So a couple ideas were hatched. One was a little pouch that maybe someone could use for travel. And so my wife actually, I'll explain how we put that together because it connects to our global supply chain, as well as a nice leather jewelry travel case. And we said, hey, look, it's gonna be something you can offer for sale, but at the same time, it's something you can send. A client made a nice order, send them this gift. It's something you have to ship them anyway. You're gonna have to use a box, but within the box, instead of a bunch of packaging that's just gonna get tossed, or a little box that again has made its way around the globe multiple times, but ultimately is gonna end up in the garbage can. let's get something that people actually could functionally use, to get the same end result. The person gets what they were looking for and is happy with their purchase. Now, if that purchase can have some things that are more functional and create less waste, I view that as a bonus. I think a little bit in these terms, and I do think it's important. I think it's important responsibility-wise because it's the right thing to do. I also think it's great for companies and brands to be cognizant of these types of principles, to have them baked into their thoughts, and ultimately these things will make a difference over time. For us, it enhances the client experience for the business. Wonderful. Box checked fantastically. You want your customers happy. On the other hand, it also created where someone's not getting something, opening it, pull out what they wanted, and tossing something directly in the garbage. You can recycle the box. You can use what's in the box. The little pouch can be used again. So when my wife doesn't send the leather jewelry case, these little pouches, are something that someone can put when they travel, put in their bag, put something inside and store it. So they don't have to throw it away. At least there's some utility to that delivery mechanism. But to get there was fascinating. Did Alibaba ordering for the first time, communicating with people directly, mainly in China's and factories in China, is absolutely an interesting experience. And again, the first order was kind of like, all right, let's see, when this is going to arrive and if it'll be what we wanted. And, now we've done many things, and I communicate with many people, and my wife too, that we get certain things for the business and are constantly looking to evolve and enhance our clients' experience. At the same time, we have people all around the planet, literally, that are touching and having an impact on our business, and we're very thankful for that.
You build those partnerships that are going to last you, forever. Hopefully,
right.
which are going to expand your company and grow your company, and at the same time grow your partner's company and grow them. And that's how. See, that's why I love that you talked about that, because that is how you start off small with something simple like that, and next thing you know, you have this flourishing partnership, and that's how companies are going to work together to achieve the goals. These important 17 goals to make the world and planet a better place. And I think the work that you and your wife are doing is just incredible, and you guys understand that concept of partnerships, and it's so important.
It is. And again, context helps. I mean, it will, the influences you have and where you come from, it adopts. I'm fortunate that I have the perspective of being, I guess I call myself semi-first generation. So my mom came from Greece when she was 21, on her own, totally by herself, in school, and has built a life here. And my father was born here. His father was born here, but they're both Greek Americans, and so they're more Americanized, but totally Greek. My dad's mom also came from Greece, like my mother, by herself, and great grandparents before that coming direct. So we've all had this experience of leaving a place that was familiar to come to a place that was a lot different. But having that connection where your relatives are in another place as you grow up, and you're a bit displaced, gives you this context a little bit growing up of the size and scope of the world. I still don't think you can truly appreciate it, and I still am appreciating just that law of large numbers. It's why I kind of joked with myself in my mind about bringing up the toothbrush. It sounds kind of stupid with the toothbrush, but it's like when you realize there's 300+ million people in the United States, a fraction of a minute of running that water every day is resources that another part of the planet are desperately needed. And and again, we're like, no big deal, if we just aren't cognizant of it. And there's other people that literally are setting their day around getting clean water. So again, little things, certainly can have an impact. But I think in touching on the experience of having more of a global view, I think that's where you sort of can, again, understand, like, there are other countries, there are other things going on, and you need to appreciate those dynamics. Like, again, not meant to be really a political thing, but more of a human, more of a human comment. about the way our globe is working and globalization. This is why, again, I shared with you kind of how I'm thinking of my counterparties in some of these other countries. In the United States, it's big. Florida, we passed an amendment here to incrementally raise our minimum wage to $15 an hour. And it's a big concept in, federally, if this will be the federal minimum wage. Don't need to get into all the nuts and bolts politically, economic impacts, whatever. Let's just say that the dynamic in the United States is that wages need to be at a certain level. Totally makes sense. In some ways, there's a lot of spirited debate you could have around this concept, but labor is priced at a certain value in this country. On the other hand, the United States will turn around, and people in the United States, and will do commerce in places that do not have the same levels of protections and let's say wage expectations for workers. That's one. But maybe more important to that is safety, and really the safety / health concerns of workers, and making sure that things are done in a way that's responsible. I mean, it's wonderful to say, hey, for us to do this project in the United States, we need all these permits, and we need all of the steps that you've gone through with engineering and with both government reviews as well as professional reviews to get projects done and to get them done safely, and then what the workers are paid, and then all the enormity of regulations that govern employer-employee relationships. They're very complex. But they provide a lot of very necessary, from my perspective, protections for labor and for people. What's odd to me, and why I brought up my perspective, and again, having the perspective in the house of someone that wasn't originally an American citizen raising you, gives you some context and some other views about how things go. And it's just very odd to me that the conversation right now, like in the United States, in some ways, and even what they did with the 1.9 trillion and said we got to have this 15 an hour, it's like these are all wonderful things to talk about and to aspire to in the United States. But it's very strange to me that we might just allow to look down the road to, or cross an ocean to another country and say, we're going to do commerce here all day. We're going to bring in products all day. But are we concerned, and have we asked the question, how are they treating people in that country? How is that labor being treated? Is it being treated fairly? Are these people being paid fair wages? Are these people being given adequate breaks? You don't want to hop in a time machine into the United States at the turn of the last century and go back to working conditions that were utterly horrific. And there was a lot in this country that was done to modernize work weeks and hours and safety. And it took years and years and court challenges within our constitutional system to get changes that could really respect workers' rights and workers really ultimately about the safety and dignity of people working. So something to me as just as important for context is to respect the fact, or to understand that, I mean, I see this. I don't have an immediate solve. I don't have all the answers. I'll always admit so. But it is something that I think is important and could be very helpful for people in our very fortunate situation in the United States to think about that you're having a debate here. At the same time you want to discuss this topic, you should also be very cognizant about how people around our planet live, how their daily lives, their daily experiences are, what is their reality. And again, let's push for dignity and safety and good wages globally, and not just kind of, again, it just sounds like a bumper sticker when here we're like, hey, do this, and on the other hand you're just importing things from everywhere, which again has a lot of benefits for places elsewhere. Right. But with it should come at least the thought of, am I sourcing things from places that are doing things morally and ethically and right by the people that are creating these things? You don't want to be indirectly sponsoring horrific situations. Very complex issue, but I think just, again, at a high level, it's be aware. And don't be so unaware that you don't appreciate that these dynamics in other places of our world are real, and we should take it into consideration. So sponsoring places throughout the world to do commerce is a wonderful thing. But I also think we need to have an eye that people are also treated with dignity and respect, and that we don't tolerate a system where you want things cheaper and cheaper, but there's a human cost associated with that. And I think we should just be aware as we achieve wonderful goals and aims that we haven't lost sight of what's the full human cost, what's the full human toll, and make sure that we're sponsoring good activity and not doubling down on negative trends that have existed with humanity for a long time, and they are a reality in a lot of places on the planet. And I really hope that in my lifetime or my kids' lifetimes that these things just try to improve and continue to improve so that everybody has a fair shot at living their best, most productive life. And that's this though, I think, is a very important concept that you brought up.
Wow, Michael, what incredible insights and perspectives you've provided us and our global audience on this interview today. And I know you said a lot of things that are gonna definitely sit with me and definitely with our audience in terms of leadership and accountability, and I think partnerships and how you and your wife are working and using your partnerships to further your businesses and the businesses of your partners. So I think it's incredibly interesting, and with people like you and your wife and the work that you all are doing, and understanding the idea of how we're going to get to these goals, it's going to make it that much easier by 2030 to achieve the goals. So, Michael, before I let you go, I just want to thank you again for joining us on Ideagen TV. And I just, before I let you go, what is your call to action for our global audience as we continue to change the world? And how can our global audience find out a little bit more about the work that you and your wife are doing?
Sure. I think the call to action is, after such a difficult, challenging year. I mean, usually I think when you have the concept of leadership, people will kind of say, looking for that courage under fire and the time to step up. We all got that opportunity for an incredible challenge with a lot of human toll, suffering that went along with it. But this is my call to action. Take all of that, believe in the things that you can get done and do well. Do your absolute best every day. Do your best to improve, do your best in your business, and have hope and optimism. Things really can't get, you always say it can't get worse. Okay. But that's not the concept I'm really trying to pursue. It's not about the negative side. It's about coming through the other end. There's things we could learn. There's new opportunities that have presented themselves because of all the challenges we've faced in this unprecedented time, in a very odd and strange year for everyone, that literally included some of the most tragic suffering that you can imagine. Out of all of that, there's a wonderful new day today. We're here. We have an opportunity to affect what we do right now, the decisions we make today. So face those with a sense of confidence and optimism. Remember to be accountable to decisions you make. I try to remind myself of that all the time. And don't forget the concept of humility. I don't have all the answers. I don't pretend to. I just want to keep learning and keep doing better. I think that every day that I can get up and just keep incrementally improving is a good day, and try to make the people around me, make their lives better. And hopefully, if we're all doing just a little bit, we can make it all a better place for all of us. Right. You can look me up, Michael Kaplanis, on LinkedIn. My wife runs her business at Shop Vasilea, Vasilea, on Instagram, or Vasilea.com is her website. Very proud of her end product, and always reach out. I'm happy to talk to people. I like to meet new people and discuss things. If people have ideas or want to share something or get my insight or thoughts on that, whatever I can do, I would love to help, and maybe that'll give me some opportunities to bounce ideas off others that can help me develop my goals and my thoughts. Right. Again, coming out of that difficult place, just kind of keep your eyes open to what is working and what can work. And again, approach that with a level of optimism. We are getting through it. We will continue to get through it. But again, I think it just takes all of us believing that and believing in each other. And I think you do that. There's so many of us out there around this planet that everyone doing just a tiny bit to just get a little bit better. We're going to improve the lives together of each other and everyone else as much as we can. And then keep encouraging those principles to others, and passing along those good thoughts and, that confidence and that encouragement. Say, hey, you can do it. You can do it. We've lost, I think, a little bit of that recently. And I just want to see us get that kind of nice attitude together, make things less political, make things less divisive, and go back to like, we can do this, because we really can. There's the only person that really ultimately, I think the worst enemy I have, I'm looking at him in the Zoom as myself. Back, it's like you can be your own worst enemy and hold yourself down. There are incredible forces out there that can make life difficult for all sorts of people in so many situations. However, you're never going to change everyone else, just in how they perceive. Work on yourself and do your best. And sometimes that's going to yield frustrating days. You should be prepared for that. But sometimes it's going to reward you in ways that you don't expect. And I think that's the beautiful thing about having a position of leadership, is that you don't always realize what your payback's going to be, as far as what you put in and what you get out may reward you in ways you never anticipated, maybe different than what you wanted, but it's still rewarding nonetheless. And I think that if people can just take a little bit of positivity and optimism, that's what I'm working on every day, because it's not natural for me all the time. So this is my own struggle, but I wanna put it out there to others to try to do better than I can. But I know it yields results. My wife is infinitely positive. There's a lot of people around me that are very positive about what they do, and I try to encourage myself to be, and I encourage others to be, because it really does. It's the right way of doing things, and it's going to yield you back so much rewarding experience. So I appreciate you guys having me on. It's a pleasure to get to talk to you and to share some ideas, and hopefully, someone will take something interesting out of it. And I hope I'll get some feedback that'll teach me something too.
Absolutely, Michael. We can't thank you enough for taking the time to join us on Ideagen TV. We are just in awe of the insight that you've provided us and our global audience. Go out and buy some jewelry to our audience. Visit the website, and Michael, like I said, we can't thank you enough for helping to change the world. And it's people like you and your wife that are going to help us get there. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll be in touch soon.
My pleasure. Wish you all the best of the event. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Take care.